Peter and I first met on a flight from Denver to Chicago in August of 1997.
Ex-White House Press Secretary Dana Perino hosts programs daily on Fox News.
When you find true love, your heart skips a million times and butterflies roam about your belly. But for Dana Perino, that spark was replaced with a dull heartache. After 28 years of marriage, the beloved journalist finally spoke out about the husband she thought would be by her side forever. And what she said about him might surprise you. So, hold on while we get into this juicy story. What it feels like to be married. For someone who penned, "What does it feel like to be married for 20 years?" We should expect a lot of lovey-dovey stories. You may be wondering why. Dana Perino is a lover girl at heart. And when you have a lover girl who isn't just a journalist but a writer, you should expect a love book the size of a dictionary. For what it feels like to be married for 20 years, Dana didn't have to be as formal as she would have been if she were penning a note for former President George Bush. It was, after all, the sincere part of her life. According to her, 2 decades of marriage feel like forever. Yet, it also feels like time hasn't gone by. Even though getting married to her partner is the best decision she has ever made, it also feels like the most challenging thing she has ever encountered. In her letter, she wonders what could happen if she missed the flight, or again, if she was given another seat. But fate played matchmaking that day and introduced her to the man she would eventually say "I do" to at the altar. She was the second to the last person to board the flight, and he was the last. When he saw her ticket, he said, "Oh, I'm sitting beside her. Seats 13A and 13C." And that was it, a love story on the plane. Over the years, their story evolved into a natural one that looked like people who had known each other from birth. They had routines, but these didn't feel like a chore or a sense of responsibility because her stomach still flipped each time she remembered he was coming home from work to meet her. But this is not the most interesting part of the story. Getting married brought a different sense of satisfaction for them. She felt something shift, and it wasn't just that they weren't dating anymore, they had become a family. Over the years, they've also owned pets. First was Henry, Jasper, and now Percy. The dogs assumed positions as central members of their lives. Dana realizes the essence of having a family. Her mother-in-law jokes about just anything. Her mom reacts with laughter all the time, and her sister and niece love to share every thought and concern with her husband. Her father was solidly behind them from the start of their relationship despite their age difference. Her dear husband also has the habit of telling her she looks good for her age. She accepted his children as her own family, while the twins of his daughter now refer to her as Grandma America, which she greatly appreciates. As their single friends married, they grew closer and stayed connected as longtime friends. On September 11, 2011, she remembers how they spent their time together. At the time, America had been attacked, and they decided to move to San Diego. But as soon as they settled in their new tiny home, they realized they needed to be in Washington. After making quick arrangements, they moved back to Washington without hesitation. Then came the career changes. At the beginning of their marriage, she hadn't crossed paths with President George W. Bush. During a later phase of his administration, he provided her with a remarkable career opportunity. Soon after, Fox News invited her to host a temporary show, after which Peter advised her to work without concern about her home responsibilities. He assured her that he would handle everything. Each morning, he prepares English breakfast tea with honey, and no one makes it better. Because of how much they understand each other, their familiarity and trust over the years allow them to select meals for each other. But their marriage together has not been without challenges. She noted that one of her biggest struggles was overcoming anxiety. Their years together have gone by in the blink of an eye, and their focus is primarily on their present experiences rather than dwelling so much on the past. However, it's not being a married couple that keeps them strong. It's their genuine emotions, love, and commitment. If you're still wondering how a love like this even started, the answer is almost too perfect. Dana Perino and Peter McMahon met on an ideal day on August 14, 1997, during a plane flight. Peter McMahon and Dana Perino were seated next to each other during the Denver to Chicago flight. But how did this meeting fuel their love story? When Peter spoke to Dana for the first time, the first thing she noticed was his accent. But it wasn't just his accent that attracted her. Upon looking at him, she realized he was handsome and had no wedding ring on his finger. Over the next few hours, until they reached their location, the two talked like they had been friends for a long time. Peter would later go on to say that he wasn't looking for any serious relationship at the time they met. Most of his life revolved around the UK, and he had no expectations when he boarded the plane. When they landed, Dana left him with a card containing her contact information, including office details, personal number, work email, fax number, and home address. She gave him everything he needed to contact her despite realizing he resided in a distant ocean. And then, silence. 10 days went by, but he hadn't called or texted. Dana was on the verge of giving up and canceling out the thought that he would ever contact her when an email popped up in her inbox. A single message is where they eventually start their love story. Within months, Dana had already decided to relocate to England. Soon, Peter organized an unplanned marriage proposal at the entrance of Washington Cathedral. Dana did not exactly give an immediate response, but she later sealed her answer with 4 straightforward words while holding his hand, "I will marry you." They eventually said "I do" on the altar in 1998. But here's a little information. At first, Dana hesitated about the relationship because of their 18-year age difference. She was just 25, and he was 43. She created 100 reasons why the relationship could fail to materialize. But when she thought about it again, she allowed love to take its course. So, what is it about Peter that has a strong hold on Dana Perino? The love of Dana's life. The first time Dana Perino and Peter McMahon set eyes on each other, they couldn't ignore their connection. Their conversations flowed like revisiting old memories, which was hard to ignore. Every day that week, Peter found his mind wholly absorbed by thoughts about her. So he eventually emailed Dana to tell her how he felt. That email kicked off their relationship. They started having regular phone conversations, and late-night texts became frequent. Soon, an off-the-cuff comment led Perino to fly to New Orleans, where McMahon was headed. That ended up being their first date. Only 11 months later, they exchanged vows in a private ceremony in England, with only 2 individuals they did not know as the only witnesses. But here's what we did not know. Before the flight's arrival, Peter had already seen Dana waiting to board. He remembers walking behind her just before the flight took off. As trivial as it might seem, the swinging ponytail at the back of her head caught his attention, and all he did was pray that he sit beside her. 032 to 037. Somehow, he did. The pair were seated at 13A and 13C. Peter had been married and had 2 kids, Barry and Kelly, who now had Rachel and Sebastian. Dana proudly presented these grandchildren to the audience as Peter's proud family. Through the years, Dana and Peter dedicated themselves to 3 significant family members, their Hungarian Vizslas. The dog family had Henry, Jasper, and eventually Percy. Peter's love for dogs made him spend time in prison when he walked Henry without a leash and forgot to pay the associated penalties. So, what was Peter's life like before he met the lovely Dana? Peter McMahon grew up in a boarding school in Scotland before attending the University of Brighton, where he got his marketing diploma. In the early 1980s, he started his medical sales career with Theracos and Dupuy Healthcare and established his consultancy firm Icon Medical in 1999. Later in the year 2019, he became president at Greensleeve Medical. In the year 2000, he permanently relocated to the United States and gained citizenship as an American in 2006. Dana said his love for American football consumed him, as she often describes him fiercely patriotic. Much of what we know about Peter is because Dana releases bits of information about him during media interviews and through her social media posts. Peter loves the German language, drives horses, flies planes, and has a Harley-Davidson with a sidecar. His Facebook page has about 100 images of dogs, but only a few pictures of human beings are posted. Peter has an adventurous spirit, although he prefers to live peacefully alongside Dana. The couple still lives in Bay Head, New Jersey. where they dedicate most of their free time to playing puzzles and games at their living room game table. The couple also rents a place in New York City, but Perino has said New Jersey is where they enjoy themselves the most. "New York City we adore, but this is where we live," Perino said to App.com in 2020. "This is the place we reconnect." But then, this marriage has had the eye of rumor mongers for a while now. Rumors about their divorce. For a couple that has been together so long, it didn't take much for the rumors to start. Multiple rumors circulated that Dana Perino and Peter McMahon had separated, while others speculated about his health. Most of these speculations are grounded on Peter being much older than her, not just his old age taking its course. People found it easier to stick with these rumors because Dana chose to keep her private life strictly personal and refused to clarify the situation. Over the years, she's been used to posting photos of herself and Peter, from their anniversary to photos of them with their dogs. Suddenly, this stopped. People who searched her profile concluded that something might be happening behind the scenes, since the only photos we have seen are of her dogs and workplace. But that isn't all of it. The way Dana discusses Peter has transformed since these rumors started circulating. People who have closely observed her throughout the years detected a specific pattern, and just out of the blue, these patterns ceased to exist. Then came the straw that broke the camel's back. A message. Some staff members whispered, because they felt something wasn't right. They couldn't point it out, but felt something had changed. A friend who had been close with them even shared their theory. According to them, Peter had been much more withdrawn than usual, and it wasn't because they had a bad couple of fights. He was hiding something. They believed Peter did not want to be a burden to his wife. He knew how much she loved her job and did not want her to pause her life because of him, so he did what he knew best. Suddenly, puzzle pieces had been put together, and it all made sense. The absence of Peter on her Instead page, the continuous posting of work, and her dogs all pointed to a divorce. To this day, Dana hasn't confirmed these stories. All we have left are just fragments of information that tell a different story. It's no surprise because if you look at Dana's life, Peter is there through the ups and downs, the cross-country moves, the career changes, and the constant spotlight. So, how did Peter fit into that picture? What kind of partner does it take to stand beside a woman like Dana? From the White House to Fox. Success in Dana's life went beyond her visibility in public roles. It all returned to the foundation she laid early in life, especially the lessons she learned from her father. Dana's father introduced the concept of critical thinking to her as soon as she entered her early years. He had created an evening routine in 3rd grade, requiring Dana to read the Rocky Mountain News and the Denver Post before arriving home. She needed to read and discuss 2 articles during evening meals with her father. During dinner, they would discuss what she had read, and her father would challenge her ideas with his alternative views. Dana gained the strength to express her opinions thanks to her daily discussions about these news articles with her father. The early boost in confidence from this experience turned out to help Dana thrive throughout her professional journey as she worked in a male-dominated environment. It was challenging for female professionals in political and media fields to break through. Although things have greatly improved when you compare what it felt like then and the present time, the challenge still takes the order of the day most of the time. After graduation, Dana initially thought of joining local news journalism, but then she began to detect what she perceived as media bias, primarily directed against Republicans and conservatives. Although she didn't identify as a conservative, Dana sensed this bias and found it hard to look away. However, this bias wasn't why she left the local news. Dana's principal reason for leaving local news broadcasting was the biased reporting she experienced and her inability to succeed at the job. Moving up in local news television required too much struggle, and the worst part was that the salaries were way below average. The few major local networks had limited spots for women, as they were also male-dominated. One time, Dana received an assignment to report about a grieving mother who had lost her 2-year-old child to a homicidal friend. The courthouse assigned Dana the mission of interviewing the mourning mother. Still, the job proved to be a mental struggle as she struggled between her duty to report the story and her respect for the grieving mother's privacy. After that incident, Dana began to doubt her reporting career. She returned to the newsroom and phoned her dad to tell him she wasn't sure about continuing journalism. Her father affirmed complete support by stating he would pick her up from school a few weeks following graduation. Dana returned home to stay in her parents' basement while working as a waitress until she got a job on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Like most other students, Dana realized that the stage after graduation required careful consideration. Her job at Capitol Hill required that she handle phone calls until she earned the press secretary position for a congressman from Colorado. 6 weeks after starting her new job, Dana earned another job as press secretary to represent a congressman from Colorado. Dana worked as the press secretary for approximately 3 years, during which she learned the need to build professional connections while working. She tried to maintain contact with everybody she met while at the job. This was before Facebook was invented. What method did she use to stay in touch with them? Postcards. Postcards were her favorite method of staying connected and keeping distant relationships alive. During this phase of her life, she met her husband, and the rest, they say, is history. They got married, and soon enough, they were off to England. At the beginning of the marriage, she felt satisfied, but subsequently, she started feeling bored. Eventually, the monotony of her life, combined with difficulties in social connections, prompted her husband to send them back home to the U.S., where they settled in San Diego. Although Dana settled in San Diego, she still felt continually restless since it seemed like there was nothing in the city for her. But time eventually brought the next experience to her doorstep. Remember that Dana kept in touch with every friend she made while she was at Capitol Hill. On September 11, 2001, everything changed. Dana contacted her friend, who was part of Attorney General John Ashcroft's team. The Justice Department handled most national security investigations during that time since the Department of Homeland Security wasn't in existence yet. She replied to Dabbs, affirming she was okay. A day later, Dabbs sent another message asking if she could relocate to Washington, D.C. and work as a spokesperson on her team. Dana swiftly organized her belongings, and she didn't look back. While all this was happening, Peter remained in San Diego to finalize their assets, and then embarked on a cross-country trip to reunite with Dana. Eventually, she started working at the Justice Department on many issues other employees had attempted to sidestep. Dana had developed a strong interest in challenging matters like tax policy and environmental problems, even though most colleagues wanted to avoid such complex matters. How she handled these issues put her in the spotlight for a promotion. A year later, she was invited to the White House Council on Environmental Quality and was promoted. By 2007, Dana started to doubt her capability to maintain such an intense position. She was overwhelmed with work pressures, and her only plan was to resign. Josh Bolton had initially advised his staff to speak up if they felt they would not finish, by informing him so he could recruit stronger candidates to continue the mission. After being truthful with herself, Dana decided she was ready to leave the position. She kept working without breaks and neglected to take care of her health throughout this period. Peter also suffered from her busy schedule, as she spent long hours at her job without him. Dana believed her days at the White House administration were numbered. She assumed a promotion to the press secretary position was unlikely because Tony Snow served the role exceptionally well. So, one day, when Peter attended a race in Oregon with Dana, they had a conversation over the matter, and she finally decided to submit her resignation. The decision to resign was another battle because she had poured every ounce of her effort into her position. But peace of mind was much better than the stress from her demanding job. However, not every step follows the plan already mapped out. Ed Gillespie, the communications director, mentioned that the president wanted her to take over the press secretary job. And that was it. Dana formally worked for the Bush administration from October 2001 through January 2009. When she left the Bush administration, Dana anticipated that her life would ease down as she started to think of other jobs that would not take a toll on her as the White House did. She pictured her future career as one that included public speaking with consulting services and charity organizations. She also wanted to become a spokesperson who would explain the decision-making logic of the Bush administration since she participated in it as a Republican woman. She understood her voice would have value if she became a media personality. With that thought in mind, she conversed with CNN while simultaneously speaking with Fox News. The meeting with CNN wasn't entirely what she put her mind to, but the situation at Fox News was remarkably different. Sean Hannity had previously spoken with Miller during his Washington trips, and upon his return from overseas, he urged Fox News to recruit Dana to their team. A team member objected because they thought they already had a Bush Republican like Karl Rove, so it would be no use bringing her in. However, Sean proved to his colleagues that Dana differed from other Bush Republicans by requesting space to prove his case. He featured her in his Great American Panel segment, and things moved quickly. Dana's acceptance as a Fox News contributor started when she received a formal invitation shortly after the earlier development. That was in April 2009. Then in July 2011, Fox News offered her a chance to join their new show, The Five. The show existed solely to bridge the time gap following Glenn Beck's departure, since Fox worked on creating new programming during those 6 weeks. Initially, Dana believed the show would end shortly after its debut, but when Peter saw her, he was convinced otherwise. 2 weeks after the show started, he said, "Oh, we're going to have to move to New York." He was right. They packed up and went. And just like that, what was supposed to be 6 weeks turned into years. The Five became Dana's longest-running job, and maybe the one that finally brought everything she loved together. The question that seems to plague our minds is, if she has an amazing support system, why has her marriage fallen apart? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Before you go, explore the other videos on your screen.